All right, wonderful. We're so excited to chat with all of you about the artist development programs. And the way that the session's going to run is the first half hour, we're going to do an overview on each program and application. And then we're going to have a conversation with three fellows that have participated in the programs: Naomi Iwamoto, Mary Dotterman, and Aaron Lau. But let's get started with our presentation. And please do drop any questions that you have in the Q&A, and we will address them at the end of our little presentation. All right. And we will start with the Screenwriting Lab. All right, so the Screenwriting Lab is a 2-week program that is held in the spring. We select 6 projects. As I mentioned, it's 2 weeks long and it is fully in person in our offices in LA. You do not have to be local to LA to participate, but please note that we are not able to provide any stipend for travel or housing. The main things that you're going to be workshopping in the program are both your pitch and, of course, your script. We are pretty agnostic about the stage of your career that you should be in. It's really about what you're looking to do and what you're looking to further develop with your project. And of course, everyone will get paired with a creative advisor who's an established writer or writer director, as often our fellows are writer directors in independent and, well, studio projects as well. And let's move on to the next slide.
If you haven't yet, you should mark your calendars. The non-member deadline is September 22nd. And of course, we have the extended deadline for members, which is October 6th, 2025. So that is just around the corner, y'all.
All right. And what are we looking for? Like I mentioned, you should have a completed draft of your feature-length project. I would say that you want to develop it to the point where you have a strong sense of character, theme, and story arcs, but there's still room to further develop the project. So not your first draft, something that you've workshopped with your circle, that you're looking to move beyond that, and you know that there's another level you can crack. That's something that we can help you with. We are genre agnostic at Film Independent. If you take a look at the press release from this past lab, you'll see that we supported horror films, fantasy projects, a very beautiful coming of age with magical realism elements. So we really like, of course, we love our indie coming of age dramas, but we really support and comedies. We support everything across the spectrum because what we're really looking for is projects with bold stories with an authentic point of view, but also something that, this is the project that you really want to make. This is the project that's been living inside of you, and you cannot move forward as a filmmaker until you get this one done. So something that you're very passionate about and also that has something to say, like so themes and takeaways are also going to be a big focus of the program. And yeah, next slide.
The application. So these are the core elements in the application. I'm going to just go through them line by line. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. The first thing you'll see is the log line. The very top, really make sure that you're using this space in the application to succinctly tell us what your story is about. At times we'll see 1 line or 4 lines. Really try to encompass what your project is about, and the log line is very important. And of course, the synopsis that gives us an overview of your project. And then we have 2 personal statements. You have your cover letter and your artistic statement. The cover letter really is going to cover why this project, who you are, why you're applying to the program. And what we really like to see is at the end or somewhere written throughout is, why do you need the screenwriting lab? Why are you applying? The artistic statement is more of a focus on the project itself. And this is an artistic statement that is from you as the screenwriter director. So really telling us how you envision this project. Your bio should include everything that you've worked on in the past. Yeah, really highlighting your projects, your portfolio, and having yourself stand out. One thing to note is at times we've noticed people who include their bio in their artistic statement or cover letter. Try not to repeat yourself because we read the entire thing thoroughly. I also tell folks to really pay attention to the project history and status box. This is an opportunity to really show us how much work you've put into your application up to this point. People have given you feedback. If you workshopped it in other programs, this is the space to tell us about that.
And I would also note that if you have applied with this project before, you're going to get like a special pop-up, which is development since the last application. So we absolutely reconsider projects, but we just want to know the work that you've done to further develop the script. Perhaps you've added additional elements, like now you have a producer on board or a casting director. And I would note that those are not requirements for the screenwriting lab. This is the program where we're going to be taking projects at the earliest stage. So no attachments are required, but always welcome, and please do share them with us if you have any. All right, so we have three different grants that are available in the screenwriting lab. So the first is the Plot Shift Media Climate Entertainment Development Grant. So this is a $25,000 development grant that is for a project that is telling a climate-focused story, ideally an uplifting story that's looking towards positive solutions to the climate crisis. This is specific to the Screenwriting Lab and Fast Track, so this is going to be a grant that's available in both of those programs. Now, we also have the Kate and Goldrick Family Foundation Fellowship, and that is for Jewish filmmakers, and the MPAC Hollywood Bureau Fellowship, which is for Muslim American filmmakers. And those are both actually across all of our programs. So if you're applying to any of our artist development programs, both of those opportunities would be available to you. And both Kate and Goldrick and MPAC are $10,000 grants.
I'll also note that this portion you will find within the application towards the bottom as a part of the application.
And so to answer, is the lab necessary to apply for future fellowships? So you do apply for the fellowships within the labs.
Oh, so these are a couple of our fellow highlights. So you can see Forge actually just saw this past year at South by Southwest. It's amazing. 37 Seconds by Hikari, Andrew on Spa Night, Chloe Zhao's songs My Brother Taught Me, Annie Simon Kennedy's A Short History of a Long Road, and Billy Luther's Fry Bread Face in Me. Just a couple of folks to highlight for you that have gone through the Screenwriting Lab.
All right, as I mentioned, some FAQs that we've gotten in the past. You do not need to live in LA, but you do need to be in LA for the lab. One script per application, and you can apply with multiple projects, but should you be selected for the program, you would be workshopping one script. Of course, you're gonna, in addition to the project specific support, in all of our labs, we're also gonna have the focus on your careers. So of course, that's gonna be applicable across all of the projects that you're doing. But there would be one project that you're workshopping in the lab. That's gonna be what your creative advisor reads, what all the other fellows read. Everybody reads everything. Everybody gives feedback on everything. And also your pitch, of course, would be focused on that one project. So what makes a strong application? So distinctive voice, compelling story, clear artistic vision. So this is also the story that you are telling about yourself. Think of the cover letter as your introduction to us at Film Independent in specifically artist development. What do we really need to know about you as a filmmaker? Why is now the perfect time for you to apply? What is it specific for the Screenwriting Lab that you would like to workshop in the program? And how do you think the program is going to further develop your project? And the lab is for fiction feature screenplays. And I would note that, yes, we would be happy to support animation projects. Unfortunately, just due to bandwidth, we are unable to give feedback on applications should you not be accepted into the program. And we do not fund projects outside of our grants and fellowships. And we also do not produce your film. And of course, by participating in the lab, you become a Film Independent Fellow. And we love to support our fellow, as you will learn very shortly. We love to support our fellows in multiple ways, and that's a relationship that you will take with you throughout your career. Let's take a look at some of these questions. So that one, producing lab, fast track, and screenwriting lab, all three have exactly identical submission requirements. So there we're looking for your perspective as a filmmaker in each of those programs. So as the screenwriter, as the writer director, as the producer, like, so speaking specifically to you and your career and your vision in these specific roles. Is it positive or detractive? We previously workshopped the script with a different program. That's totally fine, and we've absolutely accepted projects that have been previously workshopped. We would just note, address it and say why you feel like it needs to be workshopped further. Sometimes you're taking your project in a new direction. Perhaps it's a lab you did a year and a half ago and you need some additional support. So just please address that. For MPAC, must the writer be Muslim or can themes, characters? So it is specifically for Muslim American filmmakers. So the writer does need to be Muslim American. Can you go over the strong application notes that followed? Why is now the time for me to apply? So this is just specific to you and your career. Why is now the time that you need specific support, both for your project and for your career? All of our labs have that dual focus. So it's not just about the project that you're workshopping, it's also about your career. We want to make sure that all of our fellows have an interest in developing their careers in the specific fields that we're focused in. So especially for the screenwriting lab, of course, that's the role of the writer or the writer director. We support both in both roles in the program. So just talk about, like, I've gotten as far as I can. I need additional support. Sometimes it's fellows that are making a shift in their career. Like we've supported folks that were, as you'll hear shortly, active in the TV space, but this is their first film. So why is now the time that you need support, both as a filmmaker and for your specific project? Do, do, do. All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Some more FAQs. This program, as we've mentioned, is for writers only. No other collaborators may participate. Writing teams only need to submit one application. All experience levels are welcome. If you are an international applicant, you are eligible, but we need the script in English. And adaptations are okay if you've retained the rights. We do not accept docs, shorts, or TV scripts, as we mentioned in the previous slide. And as Dia mentioned, resubmissions are allowed with project updates. Just let us know what changes have been made since the last year. And there's no program prerequisites from other artist development programs.
So this one I would say is, of course, important to us, but this is a tip for when you're applying to everything. When you are responding to an email, or if you're writing to someone that says like info at Film Independent or artist development at Film Independent, know that it's one of our colleagues that's behind that email. And sometimes when people get rejected, I know it's really rough, and it's the hardest part of our job to have to send those rejections. It's very difficult for us to put the labs together, and it by no means means that we don't think that you're worthy as a filmmaker or that your script is bad. So when you get that rejection, should you get that rejection, be polite should you decide to respond, because we do note the folks that aren't. And perhaps we've had folks say, well, I don't need you anyway, and then apply again the next year. So we do remember. All right, so now we're moving into the Film Independent Episodic Directing Intensive. So this is a 3-day, this is our only virtual program. This is a 3-day virtual program that is designed for independent film directors that are looking to move into the episodic space. So it is not a shadowing program, and it's not a lab in that you're not workshopping a project. This is really about learning about the landscape of episodic directing, how it's different from film, and what you need to know essentially in the relationships you need to build to break into the space. So we do a number of sessions with veteran TV directors, showrunners, executives, actors, and key crew members that will basically like break down the role of the episodic director from a lot of different angles. So you understand the collaborators that you need to like really like hone in on when you're on set, and the relationships that you should be building, and also, the politics of the space, because it's a bit different from film. So we select 6 directors, and as with the screenwriting lab, each participant would become a film independent fellow.
Application dates. The application, oh, yes, the upcoming deadline is August 25th, just around the corner, and the member extended deadline is September 8th. So mark your calendars.
Right, so we are looking for directors with a body of work. And this can be in shorts, features, or commercials. And we are specifically looking for folks that have managed larger crews. So we're really trying to set you up for success. So to make sure that you are ready to step onto this set where you're suddenly in charge of a 200+ person crew. And again, like we mentioned, this is about folks that are looking to transition into scripted episodic television as directors. And your work should demonstrate a strong personal style and directorial voice. And like we mentioned, this is not like it's not like a teaching program, so you should already come in with a strong body of work as a director.
End of the application, you'll have your cover letter really telling us who you are, why this program, and why now. Then we ask for your bio and, of course, your resume that should detail all of the work that you've worked on, and 2 directing samples, with 1 being a fiction narrative. No reels.
And so we are, like I mentioned, open to directors of shorts, features, or commercial. Like we mentioned before, we are unfortunately are not able to provide feedback on applications, and it is held fully online, so there's no need to be LA based. But I will note they are very long days on Zoom. And depending on our guest speaker availability, we may be starting at, say, like noon and wrapping at 8 p.m. Pacific. We're very open to, and actually in this last program, I believe we only had 1 fellow that was in LA. So most of the folks were East Coast based, or we had a fellow in Atlanta. And so just keep in mind that the time will be it's gonna be a little tough in the sense that you have to be on Zoom for 8 hours, but you're gonna meet a lot of wonderful people. And one thing that I'd also note, because community is very important to us at Film Independent, so that's something that we also build into the episodic directing intensive. So you'll have time to meet with your fellow fellows individually and as a group so that you can build out those relationships as well. Because I think, like in any program, not just ours, the other filmmakers that you participate with end up being one of the biggest takeaway, like those relationships you'll carry with you throughout your career. All right, let's address some more of these questions. Um, do, do, do. Are applications with producer attachments and or proof of concept short films considered stronger and given greater weight in selection? So something that we didn't mention is, if you are the director of your project, you do need to submit a directing sample. And it can be anything, but in the sense it can be short, it can be a feature, it can be a webisode, but it does need to be a fiction project. It does not have to be a proof of concept. It's helpful if it's in like a similar like world or theme as the project that you're applying with, because what we're looking for when we're evaluating your directing sample is just, can this director direct this feature? So that's what we're looking for there. And it's, again, great if you have a producer, but it is by no means a requirement. And I think in this past lab, it was probably half and half of folks that did and did not have a producer. Okay, is there a budget limit? I would say that we absolutely support micro budget features. I'd say the lowest is typically like maybe 300 to 500, and then up to question mark. It really is about your project, and having a budget that supports the project that you're making. So that's really what we're looking for, instead of like a specific budget level. It's just, can they execute this film with the budget that they are proposing? Okay, does it need to be a finalized script or could it be a treatment with mood boards? It does need to be a finalized script. What if it's your first screenplay and you've completed documentaries? Yes, that's fine. I'm just saying it should not be the first draft. And we have absolutely supported filmmakers or writers that are making a transition in their career. One of the fellows from this past lab was a playwright, and this was his first feature. This was their first feature. So that's something that we absolutely support.
And I would just add really outlining in your cover letter your transition from documentary into the scripted space.
Do you look for projects that could be produced at a particular budget level? We do not. I would say typically our sweet spot is going to be 1 to 5, but honestly, that's not a hard rule at all. And it really is about, again, just your budget, supporting your project. What is the page limit of the screenplay? We do not have a page limit, but I would say typically you want to be between 90 to 120. For the Kate and Goldrick Fellowship, does the work need to be about specifically Jewish themes? It does not. The filmmaker should just be Jewish. How far along should be in your script? There's not a draft count because I'm saying don't apply with your first draft. We have accepted first drafts in the past. It really just is about how certain are you about the story you're telling? How certain are you about the story that you want to tell and the changes that you'd like to make? And you need some support to continue to make those changes. Let's see. So, hello, in the application materials, it asks for a narrative directing sample if you plan on directing the film, but it also says you don't have to have particular experience. I have directed a feature-length documentary, but nothing narrative. This is my first narrative project. Would that make me ineligible to apply? I would say apply, because we have supported, like we mentioned, documentary filmmakers that are moving into this space. So yeah, go ahead and apply. Does the producibility in our bio, should we include commercial work? Yes, include commercial work. And how about shorts that we wrote and directed but have been funded by a brand? Absolutely. Like, please, like all of your work as a filmmaker should be included in your bio, because that should give us a history of you as a filmmaker. Well, if we are applying to the screenwriting lab and hoping to direct the project, does it impact the application if we are emerging in the directing space as opposed to having multiple directing samples? It doesn't. It's really about the directing sample and the script. So it's not necessarily about like this is different than the episodic directing intensive. In that space, we're going to be looking for a body of work, screenwriting lab, not necessarily. If you've made only shorts, what qualities will increase the chances of being accepted? A strong voice, a strong visual style. Like I mentioned, there is no hard and fast rule on the level of filmmaker we're supporting. So we're supporting both people that have made their first feature and making their fourth feature. It really is about what you're looking to do in the lab. Are the deadlines flipped?
That they may be. I will double check that because I made 2 slides.
So yes, I do believe the episodic directing intensive is in October. So the one on the website is right. The August deadline and the September deadline, those are for the screenwriting lab. You can submit for both programs. You will hear shortly that we absolutely support people in multiple programs. How many projects does the director have to have under their belt? I'm going to assume that this is for the episodic directing intensive, and I will say this is where you do need to have a body of work. I would say like maybe 3 to 5 shorts active in the commercial space. Often these are folks that are participating in the program after they've made their debut feature. How long can the resume be? 2 pages. I'm going to be submitting a feature script that's a remake of a short. However, I have a different directing sample I feel is much stronger. Should I still include a link to the film? And if so, where in the application? So we will want to see both. In the info section for your work sample, please include the other sample that you'd like us to see. How is the evaluation in the episodic considering my directing body of work is in another language rather than English? So you should have English subtitles so that we're able to review that. Uh, I think the deadlines. You've already applied to Fast Track. Would you recommend applying to the Screenwriting Lab? Yes, and we'll shortly be hearing from a filmmaker that did both. What would you choose between two projects that are otherwise quality? What are the biggest tiebreakers you all use to make your decisions? This one's very difficult to answer because it's going to be specific to your project and you as a filmmaker. So I would say like yeah, it's this one is very difficult for us to answer, but I will say that we're always looking for like a balanced lab in the sense that we're going to be looking for folks that are working in different genres with different levels of experience, telling different stories from different communities. But yeah, there's no real tiebreaker. Okay, I think it's almost time to bring in our fellows. Let me just answer a couple more questions.
We just need a couple minutes for Mary.
Okay. If we do not have strong directing sample as a writer-director, is it smart for us to simply to apply as a writer? So I think that this would, well, I mean, so here I would say, do you want to direct your project? Because if you really want to direct your project, you should be submitting as a writer-director. This is about you as a filmmaker, as an artist, and how we're going to put you forward to the industry because you would be introduced as a writer and not a writer director. So that's a decision that you need to make. So in the lab, between submitting as a writer only, like I mentioned, you would be listed as a writer versus as a writer director. But this is again, like we want to know, like, do you really want to direct your project? Then like we're gonna put you forward and support you in both arenas. And this also affects like who you get paired with as a creative advisor. And again, how you're introduced to the industry. So this is something that if you really want to direct it, you should click that box and say that you're the director as well. Could a great feature-length script be denied the Screenwriting Lab because the synopsis, cover letter, artistic statement are not very well written? So here I would say like we do care about the effort that you put into the application because it's going to be a reflection of how seriously you're going to take the program. So do take a moment, like we mentioned in the application, you may want to like work on these things in Word or Google, not Sheets, Google
Doc,
Docs, whatever platform you're using, to really like workshop these because we do care about the quality of the application. And if we see like a couple of lines in each of these boxes, it's going to be a knock as we're considering the project.
and I'll also add, this is the only moment that we get to actually know who you are. So really use all of the real estate you have in the application to show us who you are, along with a really solid script.
There's specific elements you're looking to see in the lookbook. So this is really about your vision. So we want to get a sense of the look and feel. It's helpful to know like this is a place to tell us who your other team members are. Often there's a director statement included in this, but here we're just looking for like literally, well, what's it gonna look like? Like what are the comps? Like where do you think this lives visually? How important is it to include a lookbook? It's not make or break, but if you have one, we would like to see it. If my body of directing work doesn't reflect the style of the script I'm submitting, is it better to submit a directing reel rather than a single project? So we don't want to see a reel, we do want to see a single project, and this is something that you should just address in your cover letter. So we know like, oh, like I generally am a horror director, but this is a comedy and this is why I'm very passionate about it. And that's something that we can talk about in your interview should you make it to that stage. I have two narrative samples. One is very short, but it's the genre of my feature and the other one is long. I would want to see both. Will recording be available after this session? It will. So this will be recorded. This is being recorded now, and this will live on the Film Independent YouTube page so that you will have access to all those beautiful slides. Do you think I should submit to the directing episodic if I haven't made a commercial? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, we've supported Filmmaker. It's just an arena that you can have had experience in to do the program. It's not by any means a requirement is the word I'm looking for. Is there a lower limit for pages for a feature? So if this is meditative and has a slower pace, yeah, I would say so. So we've definitely supported projects with lower page counts. It depends on the type of project that you're making. So in that sense, I would say probably 70 would be the lowest we would go, but we have and not in the screenwriting lab, in the producing lab, we've also supported projects with scriptments, just because that's the style that the director worked in. That's not something that we would support in the screenwriting lab, though. We do need an actual script. How many applications does the screenwriting lab receive? It fluctuates between like 5 and 800. Let's see. For the writer's lab, can we submit a script that has been previously optioned but hasn't been produced? Yes, but you would need to have the rights when you're applying to the program. Is there an interview process? Yes. We do interview candidates for the program. If an additional writer who is no longer involved with the project is also a accredited writer, is there an issue with the script submission for me to be the only writer submitting to the program? I mean, if they're not an active collaborator, I would say that you should apply by yourself, but do detail that history in the project status and history. If the formatting isn't perfect, will you be disqualified? No, but I would say like submit a PDF. Don't submit any other types of documents. And you know, we're aware that these screenwriting applications can be very expensive, so we're not going to necessarily knock you, but it should look like a script. I feel like I'm going all over the place. I think I answered that one. Sorry. Can you submit for both? Yes, you can. My apologies, I'm just reading questions. Okay, what is the biggest clerical mistake you see in applications, your biggest application pet peeve? Make sure you're writing to the right organization. So don't say like Dear Sundance in your application to us. We know you're applying to all the programs. So just do like a quick copy edit before you submit. Are there any requirements on location of the script? No, we absolutely support international filmmakers, though we would not be able to help you with any visas that are required. Okay, I think we're going to take a pause and we're going to go back to your questions after the conversation because our lovely fellows have arrived and I cannot wait to introduce them to you. So, very excited to introduce these fellows to you, and Aaron, Naomi, and Mary, if you want to turn on your cameras. So, Nate, it's going to quickly introduce you before we jump into the conversation. And start with Erin. Native Hawaiian filmmaker Erin Lau has dedicated her life to creating stories exploring empathy, family, and identity. Since graduating from Chapman University, she has continued her growth through opportunities with the Sundance Institute, Film Independent, Tribeca Studios, Half Initiative, Women in Film, and more. Her films have screened in over 50 festivals across the world and have been featured on the Criterion Channel, Netflix, and PBS. Notable works include The Moon and the Night, All I Ever Wanted, and Inheritance. Erin most recently directed an episode of Fox's series Rescue High Surf. Outside of her scripted work, Erin has contributed to multiple award-winning documentaries, including producing the award-winning feature Standing Above the Clouds. Hi, Erin. Next up is Mary Dodderman. Mary Dodderman is a film independent screenwriting, episodic directing, and fast track fellow. Her debut feature, a body horror comedy called Booker, premiered at Fantasia Film Festival in 2023 and was supported by Tribeca Creators Market and Film Independent. Booger was released theatrically by Dark Sky Films in the fall of 2024. Mary has written and directed projects for Adult Swim, published kids' books that are for kids, directed some decent commercials, and co-invented a viral beach accessory, the tortilla towel. Her short films have been selected for Vimeo staff picks and screened at over 40 film festivals. A creative alum from Wieden and Kennedy, Droga 5, and CP+B, she was recognized as an EDC Young Gun for her body of work. Mary is originally from Texas and now lives in Brooklyn. Hi, Mary. And finally, Naomi. Naomi Iwamoto is a writer-director based in LA. For TV, Naomi has written for Hulu's half-hour dramedy Tiny Beautiful Things, Lena Waithe's 20s, CBS's Happy Together, NBC's Connecting, and an upcoming Marvel series. As a director, Naomi's short documentary Lost and Found played at film festivals around the world and went on to be included in the Paramount Studios Women Behind the Lens Showcase. She is an alum of the Ryan Murphy Half Initiative and the AFI Directing Workshop for Women and is currently a Women in Film Directing Fellow. She holds an MFA in production from USC's School of Cinematic Arts and undergraduate degrees from UCLA in political science and Asian American studies. She is currently developing her first feature film, which was selected for Film Independent's Feature Screenwriting Lab in 2024. Hello. So I would love for each of you to share what programs you've done. And I'll start with Erin.
Yeah, hi everyone. I did Project Involve in 2021, and then I did the Episodic Directing Intensive in 2022.
Great. Naomi?
Hey everyone, I did the Feature Screenwriting Lab in 2024.
And then Mary, although I did just read it.
Naomi and I did that same lab together in 2024, which is so nice. I did the episodic directing in this past February, and then I did fast track in 2023.
And how did you each get introduced to Film Independent?
I mean, I knew about it and applied and was rejected and applied. And then my producer, Lexi Tannenholtz, who I made my first feature Booger with, did the producing intensive with Booger, I think in 2022.
In post-production with Booger.
Yes. So she was using our film as an experiment with you guys. But I feel like that did make, you guys more aware of me as a director.
Awesome. Erin, how'd you find out about us?
I feel like you guys just have like a very cool rep around town, so I just knew about it for a while. I want to say my first introductions were because of other alumni of Project Involve. While I was doing the Sundance program, Andrew I remember Rachel Goldberg and a couple of others all suggested I look at Project Involve as my next step and Film Independent in general. So all of these mentors that I had held very highly were saying, go this direction. And so that's where I went. But took me 2 tries. Happy the Project Involve worked out because it's an awesome program.
And what would you say were the developments in your career between those applications?
The first time I applied to Project Involve, I was right out of grad school. And then I waited a couple of years after really taking my time working more in industry. And it's funny, when I applied the second time, I looked back at the first application and it had a, oh yeah, okay, I wouldn't have accepted me either reaction. I think coming out of school at that time, I was saying I wasn't really leaning into what was unique about my journey versus saying what I think people want, what I thought people wanted to hear. And so when I sort of got past that, I think that was sort of the key difference, but I also had more industry experience at that point. So the confidence and stuff also was there, I think, a little more solidly.
Awesome. And Naomi, how'd you hear about us?
So there were several filmmakers that I really look up to, like Andrew On and Hikari, and I know that their films had gone through the screenwriting lab, but also when I went to grad school at USC and graduated about 10 years ago. But my last year, I was actually writing for the film school magazine, and they had asked me to interview Hikari. And she had done the Film Independent Feature Lab, and she was almost getting all of her financing for her film. So when I was interviewing her, she was talking about how much she loved this program. And so I remembered that, and I didn't have a feature then because it was a while ago, but I had it in my head that if one day I do have a feature that I want to direct, I'm going to try to apply to this program. And then I did like 8 years later.
Amazing. And Naomi and Mary, can you tell us about the projects that you took through the program?
Yeah. The project I did fast track and the screenwriting lab with is called 30 Grand, and it's a heist comedy with a female friendship at the center. It hopefully will be my second film. And it's definitely like a very silly bloody comedy, and it's something that I was really excited about but wanted to develop the character work more. And I was like, I know I'm really good at premise, but I'm not that great at kind of character, and that's what I really wanted to work on in the program, and it was incredible. And yeah, I'll keep talking about the program later, but that's what the project was and why I really wanted to do it with this specific project. And my cat also loved it. Yeah, she's loves Zoom. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Naomi.
The what and the why of the, yeah.
Yeah, what project? And then if you want to share what you were hoping to achieve in the program, that'd be great.
Yeah, so the script that I applied with is a coming of age story about a girl in high school who loses her best friend and deals with her grief and also learns how to love her mother. And when I applied, I think it was an early draft, and I honestly was very stuck. I knew there were a lot of things that I needed to work on, and I was really looking for people who have done this for a long time, the people at Film Independent, but also a cohort to give me fresh eyes and honest notes and opinions. And so, yeah, I think I was just at a point where I knew that I needed guidance to move the project forward. And also, I had been working in television for a while then, and I had no experience in features. And I didn't really have a community in features. I didn't know other feature writers. And so, those were the two main reasons why I applied.
And how would you say it impacted your script?
Oh my gosh. I mean, in so many ways, it impacted my script. I would say that I got a better handle on what I wanted to say and what the core of the story is, because in addition to workshopping the script, you also do a 5-minute pitch that you develop over a couple weeks. And I think also being able to talk about the project. It was the first time I even talked to anyone about the project because it was such an early project. And so it really helped me clarify what I wanted to say and the core of the story. And I think that's really important when you're revising, because it's easy, at least for me, to get lost and get off track. So it allowed me to really clarify what that North Star was.
So, Mary, same question. How did it impact your script?
Yeah, I agree with what Naomi said. We like almost the process of pitching to each other, workshopping it to each other. One, it's like what's making this project exciting to you, and like what makes everyone light up in the room. And I mean, just in like lunch breaks, we'd all be like, I love this thing. And it kind of helped remind you why you want to tell your specific story, which is huge. And kind of just I was honestly so excited after the lab to get back into it. I think for me specifically, there were a couple things which I love when this happens, that were like, oh my God, duh, like this is the midpoint, this is the climax, like all these things that were partially structural that made the story so much more cohesive. And it just felt like a nice what's the word? Like I feel like in between writing my first feature without any guidance or this kind of community and this film, I just felt like such a stronger writer because of everything I was learning and all the ways these things were clicking together. But like I said, like I really wanted to work on character, and we did a lot of exercises as a group that I mean, we're very vulnerable, but awesome. And I feel like it helps you start talking about what you're trying to say as an artist. And also, like, why am I writing these characters, and where are these like vulnerable, like, I don't know, I think vulnerable moments in your story you can kind of only get in touch with if you realize why you're doing it. And a lot of that is so in your head when you're writing alone, but when you're forced to be talking about your project this much, it all kind of starts bubbling up in a really cool way. So that felt really exciting to and scary to re-engage with and think about during the lab and after.
Can you share a little bit about your experience with your creative advisor? Well, advisors, as you were paired with a team.
Yeah. So what's kind of scary that happens in the lab is everyone is paired with an advisor, and they come to the class and they have read your film, and they use your, and we all have read each other's film, and they use your film as like a lesson. They're kind of giving you like a live critique in front of everybody, and also just general screenwriting advice. So it is like, okay, we're all gonna workshop my film today as a group. That is scary. But also really cool because you get so much personal attention. And yeah, I feel like Film Independent did such a cool job of pairing specific mentors with specific projects and artists that felt really like, oh yeah, like this is really exciting that this is the person that I worked with the team. Like this is the team who's looking at my film because I admire so many of their pieces, and like it's gonna be really great to get their take. So yeah, you get that personal attention and kind of like class. And then another session with them after the program is over to go in depth and ask them more questions or talk to them about your career or whatever. I use that session to like really nerd out about like my ideas for my next draft. Kind of like, yeah, doing a little writers group with two incredible professionals, which was really special and cool.
And to share who Mary's advisors were, it was Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi. And Naomi, would you like to share a little bit with us about your experience with Jeff Stockwell, who was your creative advisor?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff was so great. And I think, the session, I think it's like a 3-hour session or something that we do in the lab where the creative advisor really sort of runs the room and gives you notes, but also engages the other cohort who have read your script. And, that was so helpful. But I also love that we did have that session, after, I think it was like a couple weeks after or a few weeks after, um, where I had time to digest those notes, and I was able to have a more in-depth conversation about the things that resonated with me or that I was confused about, because I do think that it takes time to digest things. And so I really appreciated that it wasn't just like workshopping in the fellowship in those 2 weeks, but it was also like we had like follow-up sessions in different capacities that really helped sort of us to really, really revise, yeah, it just really helped a lot. So I enjoyed it. He's great.
Wonderful. So Aaron and Mary, I'd love to hear a little bit about what drew you to apply to the Episodic Directing Intensive.
Or yeah, I'll talk, I guess. I felt like yeah, so I work as a commercial director too, and have made a narrative film, would like to continue making narrative films. And it kind of felt to me in my career like there's this really big gap between commercials and features. And making my first feature, I like fell in love with working with working with a longer story, working with actors in a way that's like much more engaged. And for that reason, making episodic television feels really exciting to me as like just a way I want to build my career, like a sustainable way to build my career and make money as a director who likes story. But it feels, and yeah, you the more you learn about how to get into this world, the more you're like, oh, it doesn't just happen. Like it is really, you have to be tapped into some networks and you have to really understand how the system works. And yeah, like having done some programs with Film Independent and loving them, I was like, this is obviously like a really great next step towards wanting to do that. So that's why I applied. I was like, I really want to dip a toe in that world. I'd love to be doing that. And I feel like Film Independent is such a great resource and has been for me as an artist. And the program was incredible. Learned a lot about like kind of what I should be doing and thinking about, and all these incredible fellowships and shadowing programs that I wouldn't have known about, and got to meet people. Like Film Independent also sets you up with sort of like mini oh my God, what are they called? You know, those meetings that they have
Generals,
in Hollywood.
Yeah.
the mini generals.
Little general.
Yes. Yeah, that is just like that access is incredible. And yeah, so that's why I wanted to do it, and what I got out of it. And it's been really cool.
Awesome, Erin.
I had the opportunity to be a PA on TV early in my career, and I had also shadowed a little bit out of college, and I always sort of knew TV was something I wanted to build towards. But similar to what Mary spoke about, it's very elusive. Finding that entry point is quite difficult. And TV directing is also its own art form. Yes, you're directing actors and applying a lot of the skills you do in features and shorts, but there are still nuances that are different. And so when I applied to that program, it was actually the first year. And I had such a wonderful time at Project Involve, and I knew this was a long-term career goal for me, that it just felt like, why not? And it was really, really helpful because I'll get my first episode last year. And a few of the things we went over in the programs, like how to take an interview for a slot, what expectations a showrunner has, and common mistakes that can happen for newer directors to the space. And we had incredible TV directors like Maggie Kiley, Rachel Goldberg, Alan Powell was the showrunner that came through. And so a lot of the process, what to expect, I went back and looked at my notes before I had my interview for the show, and also referred to a lot of my notes when I was in prep. And so it was very, very helpful. And I'm so happy I got to do it because I could lean on a lot of that knowledge. And also a couple of the people I stayed in touch with, I reached out to before my episode. And so, yeah, I'm grateful. It really helped when I got to the bat.
Amazing. And I'd love to hear from each of you. What was the most surprising thing you learned about episodic directing?
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a tough one because there's about 50 different things I want to say. I think,
Of course, without breaking the confidentiality of the session.
I think the joy that can be found in limitations, like I think a lot of people look at, oh, you have to compromise so much artistically in television. But actually, if you look at it as opportunity of the sandbox and being creative within that, there's a lot of space to explore and to build. And I think hearing about that in the program and then experiencing that once I was in that role, I very much agree and embrace that. I think there is a lot of creativity and freedom in the sandbox if you allow yourself to look at it that way and to push yourself towards those challenges.
So, Mary, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I guess there were a couple things. Like we got to talk to DPs. We got to talk to editors, like talking to keys that worked within the that would be your collaborators and the people that you're kind of would be coming into the fold with, was really interesting and cool, because it is like Erin was saying, like if you're a visiting director or it's not your show, you are kind of like fitting into a system that's already working, but what can you bring to it as a director, and what can you learn, and when should you listen, and when should you speak up, and those kinds of things. But it felt to me really exciting, like, oh, like how cool to be part of such a massive machine that has so much resources and making something really cool. It felt really exciting to hear about that. And the other part that I feel like was, you know, like surprising and empowering was like we did some exercises with some of the visiting directors, and it made me feel like, oh, I know how to do this. It's just a matter of like when.
Mhm.
So that was really exciting and also really fun to talk to other directors about their approaches.
Awesome. I'd love to hear from each of you. Like, what is your favorite memory from, I'll say the program, but whichever program you'd like to speak to, if you've done multiple.
I
I can
mean, yeah, go ahead.
I'll say when I was in Project Involve, I made my first ever rom-com. And that was very intimidating to me because I'm more used to just making people cry. But it was so much fun. I think particularly day 2 when we really kind of found our sea legs, the amount of laughter and just fun and joy I had with my team. Like I'm still very good friends with all of the core fellows and PI that was on All I Ever Wanted, our short film. And I think I will say I think Film Independent, at least in my Project Involve experience, is very good at weeding out a-holes. And so we had a very positive, warm environment and had day 2 was just so much fun and really reminded me of why I love directing and why I love this community. So rom-com set day 2 is probably is the first thing that comes to mind.
And it's a beautiful film.
I guess I would say that the program I did in person, the screenwriting lab, it was incredible to be in the space with everyone for that time and really be deeply immersed in everyone's projects. I feel like there were several conversations we'd have either like in a session with our story editor mentor or just at lunch when someone like either someone would get a note or we'd all be talking and be like, oh my God, yeah, that's going to be amazing for your script. And just all feeling really excited for each other, about each other's projects. I don't know, the energy of being with other writers and being, yeah, we're all just like taking our projects to the next level. It was really nice, like bonding experience.
Yeah, there's, I mean, so many great memories, but I do think at the end of the fellowship, we do a presentation, like a 5-minute pitch to execs who come in. And, I thought that was really special because for me, I got to see everyone's pitch and projects sort of develop and you see like how it's changed. And then it was just such a special, warm environment, and it felt so honest and beautiful. And I think there is something to being in person that was really wonderful. And I just felt like we really grew together. And to be able to see that, like, I think we were all really nervous to do it. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pitch this thing? I've never even talked about it. And it was one of the best experiences of the whole fellowship. So, yeah, that was really memorable.
And Mary, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you developed your pitch as well, as that is something we make everybody do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been getting back into another draft of this script. And when I was working on the pitch and being so nervous, I was like recording myself saying it all the time. And I found an old recording and was listening to it again before like getting back into my outline. And it was really, I was like, yeah, that's a good pitch. Hey. But I feel like it was, yeah, shaping, it's sort of, I mean, it's sort of a sales pitch and it sort of is also like, distilling why you're making it, what's exciting, what's your connection to the film, and how you would want it, how you would want people to feel after seeing this film, like those kind of high level elements. I think I had some versions that were too in the weeds on my plot and some version that were too in the weeds on themes, but kind of balancing out to be like a nice 5 minute with all the highlights. But yeah, it was, I'm trying to remember what I kept cutting and shaping, but do feel like I left with a really strong way to talk about what I wanted to make.
Mhm. So I'd love to hear how did each of you prepare for like actually being in the program? So you've been accepted. For the folks that did labs, you've gotten everybody's projects to read. How'd you prepare yourself? And what would you say filmmakers should do in preparation of being in, either the intensive programs, Aaron, for you, it's also project involved in addition to the directing intensive.
Get a fresh notebook, sharpen your pencils. I feel like I also would be, yeah, just like creating the mental space for this to be what you're thinking about all day if you can. Because you're going to school and you want to make the most of it. So yeah, having the space and time, get your life in order and then go to school.
I agree with that. I was gonna say clear your schedule as best as you can because I tried to make sure I could be as immersed as possible. Like a lot of us obviously might have to work day jobs, but as much as you can beyond that, keeping your schedule open. And I also went into the program with a lot of openness in general. I knew that there was a chance I would be directing in a genre I was unfamiliar with and
Mhm.
embracing how exciting that is. Like as much as the rom-com intimidated me, it really made me discover that I really enjoy more of like a dramedy space. And I had also even pitched you pitch on two projects and project involve, and even the other one I pitched on was a hard comedy. So I
Mhm.
really tried to push myself to be open to very new experiences as a director. And I think I got so much more out of the program because of that openness. And so I really tried to go in just flexible and going a little bit with the flow, but knowing I wanted to grow. So that means doing things out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, for the screenwriting lab, I think we get the scripts about a week before the lab, and you read them and you send notes to your cohort. And I think um, preparation wise, it was really sort of digging into those scripts, and I was just as invested in like how they change, and you're able to track how they change over the 2 weeks. So that was really just as helpful to me as working on my own script. And also I think, I agree with Mary and Aaron, like, knowing that, you're clearing your schedule and it's almost kind of like going back to school. This lab was 2 weeks and I just really tried to savor it because, you know, where else can you really like do 2 weeks where you're focusing on your voice and a specific project like this and getting feedback on it? Like, I think it's really, really special to have that time to kind of explore and play and experiment and discuss a story that you're passionate about, and having access to all these people who are, willing and excited to really dig in with you. I mean, it's really such a privilege to be able to do that, especially when you're writing a feature, it's so isolating and you're by yourself. So I really tried to savor the experience and really tried to be as present as I could each day, because I really saw it as a gift to myself, you know.
And Mary and Aaron, how did you, if you have any tips to share on how to survive those long Zoom days during the episodic directing intensive? Because I know for me, it's also like you're staring at a computer for 8 hours.
And fast track.
And fast track is now partially in person.
Okay, cool. No, I feel like I had to rearrange my desk so that I had more space. Yeah, you're just sitting in whatever room you're in all day long. Um, I don't know. I was also just like go straight to bed.
Take a walk. Take a walk before stretch whenever you can. Have snacks. If you
Yeah.
can, find the best chair in your house and sit on that chair for most of the session.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel to some degree we all are experts from the COVID era, but if you're out of practice, I think good back support, good snacks, and if possible, good temperature controls. You'll
Yeah.
survive.
And for our in-person labs, we do provide snacks, mostly of the sugary kind that are sitting on the table throughout the sessions. So question from our audience, did being a film independent fellow help you find representation? And how in general has it helped further your career? And anybody can answer this one.
Yeah, I had a manager before I did things with Film Independent. And it was a mix of people who were and weren't repped, but I don't think that is I don't think that should be your goal doing these programs. I think your goal should be to be focusing on your work, and that the management will come when your work is in a good spot. But I do think what it's given me is like the Film Independent stamp of approval as an artist, which is, I would argue, a bigger deal. Because I think people do see that you've done these programs and trust Film Independent's tastes and want to read your work now, which is really cool.
I also had my reps before I came into Project Involve, but I will say a few different things. One, having another sample in my portfolio that wasn't just strictly drama really helped open some doors for more generals and help me build other relationships. And also the alumni and my cohorts, like that community is so strong, and that has been a wonderful support for me as well. And then there are sort of the skill sets you get to build, getting more swings at the bat. You know, if I hadn't done the episodic program, there are lessons I, may not have been able to put into play when I did do TV, as well as with Project Involve. I had worked with a writer before, but my writer before I came to Project Involve was my best friend. So the dynamic is different. So coming into a program where me and the writer don't know each other and we have to build a chemistry and find how to work around our notes and make something we're both proud of was very good practice and something I still implement a lot because I don't write a lot of my work.
I also had my reps before doing the screenwriting program. I think what I got out of it was so many things, but I think, I had been wanting to write a feature for a while, and I was like saying it, thinking it, but I wasn't really doing it. And I think doing the independent program and getting that stamp, like Mary was saying, like made my reps take this part of my career more seriously. Like they're like, oh, she really is serious about, working in features or breaking into features and writing and directing a project. I think it really helped them pay attention and like other people pay attention that I am really interested in this part of the industry because yeah.
Awesome. I'd love to hear from each of you, and this can be like a piece of advice or a relationship, but what was one of your biggest takeaways from the program? And again, saying program generally, so you can answer about whichever program you'd like.
One of the biggest takeaways I had from the screenwriting lab was working with our story editor mentor character, lovely person, Ruth, who I still work with and meet with all the time about new projects. And I just didn't even know about that, that kind of superpower you could bring, having someone whose job it is to literally help you beat out story and kind of work on what you're really trying to say. I loved all the sessions we did as a group, and yeah, I keep working with her.
This is kind of repeating my earlier answer, but it's just the truth. I love the team I had in Project Involve, and they're all very good friends of mine, but still come to my birthdays, still watch my cuts, still give me advice if they've been in a program I haven't. Vun, who was the writer of All I Ever Wanted, and I see each other pretty regularly. And we've talked about some of the writing programs me and my partner are thinking of, and Vun gave advice. And so they've just been real pillars in my life. So the relationships of the other fellows is what I'm most grateful for.
Gosh, there's so much. I think specifically for this program, it was a reminder how important and essential revisions are and revising. And it's not just that you revise a script once, but that it might be many revisions. And I think, working with the creative advisor, really reminded me that it's a whole journey, it's a process. And also seeing other people in the cohort, we were all at different stages in our projects. Some had been working on it for 2 years, some it's a like newer project, and just to see that it is a process. And so you don't just do like one fellowship and then your script is solved. But it's a process. And I think with a feature, you need so much stamina. And I think it was helpful to see that through my cohort and through the advisors, and knowing that this is like one step in the journey.
And Naomi, what was something that you learned that surprised you, or just that was different from working in television when you were learning more about the feature landscape in the screenwriting lab?
Um, you know, there's so many things that are so different from TV and film. Um, I think, even just um gosh. Hmm. I mean, okay, so I think one thing that I really learned in this program is like TV is incredibly collaborative. Like, when you're in a writer's room, there's like 10 writers and you're talking to each other all the time. And so it's like highly collaborative. In features, I was like, gosh, it's so isolating and you're working by yourself a lot. But then in a way, like you really need that community to make your script better. And so although it is more solitary, you really still need a community to make your script better. And so, just like I have a community in TV, like you really need a community in film in order to just continue on this path. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'd love to hear from each of you. What are tips you have for folks that are looking to apply, like when they're like facing that open application? How should they what did you think is important to emphasize? Could you share a little bit about how you approached your applications?
I think it's helpful. Well, helpful. I think it's useful to you and to Film Independent to say what you want help with. You're applying to this program with a project you love, but it's not perfect. And yeah, if you can articulate like, here's what I think I would get out of the program and here's what I'm looking for, I think that'll help you have clarity. And it's just like, it's okay to be vulnerable in your application, I guess is kind of what I'm saying. And say what you want help with.
I think being specific is really important in that not only in your individual story of like what is a answer you can give in that personal statement that only you can say, that is part of your individual unique journey, but also even like why this program. Really do your homework, because even when I review applicants for friends to give them feedback, you can kind of tell when there's like a copy and paste answer versus someone who's really looked at how this specific program will benefit where they're at. So I do think I caution against the copy and paste. To really look at the program, think about it, and try to be more specific in your answers. On both that end and in your journey as a filmmaker and why you tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I feel like an application you're also showing your ability to be a storyteller. I don't remember the exact prompts or anything, but even, when you're talking about yourself, like I feel like it's an opportunity to show your storytelling skills. And I mean, in terms of the interview, I just really tried to show up as myself and be honest that, I've been working on this project. I'm lost in these specific areas and I need help. I think, um, yeah, I was just honest. And I think that goes a long way as opposed to if I was like, oh, this is almost done and I know what I'm doing, which was not the case at all. So yeah.
I would also say if you're almost locked, why do you want to be in a screenwriting lab and workshopping your project? So we really do want to hear like this is what I want to work on. This is what I'm hoping to continue to develop in the program. Another question I have for all of you is just what stage do you think filmmakers should be in whether it's their career or their in their specific project to like fully take advantage of the programs?
I think, yeah, oh wait, go for it, Erin.
I'm going to just speak to project involved for this one.
Yeah,
I
sure.
do, because I did see a question pop up about, do you need a lot of commercial experience? When I applied to project involved, I had been working in industry, but not necessarily as a scripted director or a commercial director. It was in a variety of roles. And so I do think it's important that you have a couple of samples as a director if you're applying to project involved as in that role. And I also think it's important that you've started to figure out what your voice is so that you can articulate that in the application. But I wouldn't be discouraged if you don't have a stacked resume or you don't have a lot of directing credits that are very commercial, because everything I submitted at that point when I was accepted was more of my personal work and also even a combination of some student films.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good, if you've figured out your voice, you've made a couple films, even if they're smaller micro budget films that you're very proud of, that's a good opportunity to take the next step to project involved. So that's my 2 cents for that program.
I think for the feature lab, I think when you have a script that you're really passionate about, I think, you know, that's what I can think of because I think there's obviously it's good to have experience and other samples under your belt. But I think if you really are passionate about a script and you want guidance and help, I think you should apply.
Yeah, I think, well, what Erin said, I think also like knowing your voice is going to be really good, and you won't know that until you've done some experimenting, either writing or you're making things. But I also think it's just for me, always like I write a draft, I look up what deadlines are happening over the year, and I use the deadlines as guideposts. I think just entering film independent as a part of your writing process is not a bad thing to do. Just get in the habit of making, like, as you're making something, be thinking about yeah, writing the essay questions is useful, getting your brain to think about what this project actually is. So I would say, yeah, just hit apply every year. It's a great deadline for yourself, and you'll probably get in when you're ready.
Awesome. So a question for you, Mary, from our audience. Did Mary participate in Fast Track before the Screenwriting Lab? Was it the same project? If yes, did it bring clarity? Either program.
Yeah, I did. I did the same project for both of those things. And I did Fast Track before I did the Screenwriting Lab. I think that I had a pretty strong pitch, but I knew that my goal was honestly to do the Screenwriting Lab. But it was a pitchable project at that point. So I think if the stars aligned, it would have been like, get the script in perfect shape and then try and sell it. But the entire process altogether was really useful for the project. And I have a lot of really nice connections from both of those programs with the same project.
And can you share a little bit about your experience in Fast Track?
Yes, Fast Track is another one where you're sitting on your butt all day. But not anymore, apparently. But if I was paired with, or I was working with my producer, Lexi Tannenholtz, who we had just come off of doing another project together. We really like working together. And so you're kind of like a team with your producer, and you're meeting with people and talking, like I'm talking about the project as an artist and how I plan to direct it and why I wrote it. And Lexi's talking about like kind of the plans for the film and how we are going to pull it off. So you're doing it as a team, and then you're meeting with a bunch of kind of like a variety of people that could help bring it to life. It was really fun, and we had a lot of fun. And we also, like the screenwriting lab, broke off into groups and pitched to other people participating in the program, which was really fun. And I've made a lot of friends that way too. And just like keeping in touch with each other on how everything is going with their projects.
Awesome. So community is something we emphasize like in the labs, but at Film Independent as a whole. Could you share a little bit about what it's been like to be in the Film Independent community since you've done your programs? And this goes for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw Naomi and our other lab friends last time I was in LA. So it's really nice. Yeah, I'm in New York. A lot of the people in the program were in LA, but we all text each other whenever we're in and out of town. Those are the people I love to see. And it's also really encouraging. Naomi, I owe you a draft to read. The people that you're doing the programs with, I think will continue being part of your universe, because you're all kind of in a similar stage. And also it's so nice to have each other when we have questions about the industry or what we're doing. It's really great.
Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, yeah, we got together at a bar when Mary was in town from New York, and I think like end of last year, me and Juan Paulo, another participant in the feature lab, we were at the same film festival. So we saw a bunch of movies together and like walk through like the forest. So, and we also exchanged notes on a script. So, I mean, I feel like that's been amazing on a, interpersonal level, and having these connections, especially because you open up so much in the lab. And then also just being a part of the bigger Film Independent family through events has been really amazing. It really does feel like you're a part of something bigger, because they do have so many programs, and you meet people from who might have done this like feature lab 20 years ago, or like, the episodic lab like 2 years, like it's just such a huge community of people. And I don't know, it's really amazing. I'm grateful to be a part of it.
So I'm just curious, what film festival was by a forest?
Oh, Mill Valley.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Aaron?
I think Mary and Naomi hit it. The only thing I'll add is I love my year. I just had dinner with one of the other directors, who I think we get together quarterly at this point to vent about wherever we are in our lives. But outside of my cohort, I think pretty regularly for the last 4 years, I will get a text, or 3 years, 3 years. I will get a text or a message or an email from a current PI fellow asking for advice for their shoot or their pitch. And so I love that there is sort of that bridge that connects us across the years of, oh, this is someone I can use as a resource. And I certainly did that too, of folks who had gone through PI and there are 2 different alumni that I contacted when I went through the program. And so it's very cool to me that we can continue to utilize each other as we go through the programs and then build relationships, because there's a handful of PI folks that are not from my year that I'm friends with now and have kept in touch with. So similarly to what Naomi said, it's just you're part of this bigger family.
And what advice do you give to those fellows that reach out?
One is, don't panic. It will be okay if you don't get the slot. that you want for shooting. It will be fine. And it often goes back to that flexibility. I think a lot of people get precious of like, oh, I really want it to be this project when I pitch. And I try to encourage folks to like, this is how I did my pitch for one. And I kind of share a little bit about that experience. And then I bring up that even if you don't get your first choice, you may be surprised by how much you'll learn by actually being pushed to the one that's a little more out of your comfort zone. So don't be too down about it.
Wonderful. So there are a sea of programs that support filmmakers. I just love to hear if you have any like specific thoughts on why folks should consider film independent specifically when they're looking to hone their skills or workshop their project.
I will say what I feel from Film Independent, all the programs I've done, that's really special is how much you guys actually want our projects to happen. Like, it's like, we want you guys to make these movies, we believe in them. And that is really special. And I think, yeah. And so it feels really encouraging. And it feels like there's just practical advice about how to get this thing made that I don't think you get everywhere.
Amazing. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, for the episodic intensive, maybe I'm just not unaware, but I don't think there is another program over such a short period of time where you get to meet so many people that work in that space and in an intimate setting, because it's only around 5 or 6 fellows.
Mhm.
So one, I think that's a very unique program. And then for Project Involve, similarly, I feel like Project Involve is the OG of a program that allows you to make a film and brings together already very talented, decently experienced too people who are mostly wonderful, and you get to almost go through like a mini film school together. And while there are some programs doing that now, PI's been doing it for like 20 years.
Oh, over 30.
Oh, over 30. Okay. Fact
33,
check.
yeah. All right. Well, I wanted to thank Mary, Erin, and Naomi so much for joining us and for sharing their experiences. And Ashley, if you want to come back on camera. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us tonight. I hope you got a great overview of our programs and why you should apply. As we mentioned previously, this was recorded and will be posted on our YouTube so that you can refer to it when you are applying to our programs. So thank you so much and bye, everyone.